Hello, everyone. Today we're diving into the first story, an event that happened to me and will probably be the single most terrifying experience in my entire life. Have you ever been jolted awake by a strange knock on your door in an unfamiliar hotel? Let me tell you, that feeling, it's something else. I had just graduated college in the Midwest and received an offer from a major bank in Charlotte, North Carolina. Thus, the most logical next step for me was to search for housing options in the Charlotte area. Just a couple of days after graduation, my father and I flew to Charlotte, and we stayed in a hotel that was both near the airport and downtown Charlotte. It was an area that was in the midst of being gentrified, mixing homeless crackheads and young professionals all in one place. There were rundown stores and old ranch houses, but there were also newly built townhouses and a beautiful shopping center close by. While there were times that I felt unsafe in the area, it didn't seem like anything serious would happen other than the random harassment from the homeless that roamed the streets. The hotel was really nice, which was surprising for a building that had been there before the gentrification began. Breakfast was provided, the rooms were very clean, and the lobby had multiple places to relax or do work. While the hallways of the hotel definitely looked like they were from the backrooms, I felt safe within the confines of the building. At least I thought so. My father had to cut our 4-day trip to Charlotte short since a family emergency occurred. He allowed me to stay in the city for one more day while he took the next flight out to make it back home as soon as possible. I was completely fine with that, and for the last day, I explored the city and searched for more housing options alone. When I got back to the hotel that night, I took some time to relax, watching TV, YouTube videos, and listening to music. By 12 a.m., I was pretty exhausted, and I turned off the lights and closed the blinds, flopping down in bed with both my AirPods in. I spent the next couple of minutes listening to music as I drifted to sleep. I woke up at around 3 a.m. to knocking on my door. I could only hear it because the music in my AirPods had stopped as my playlist had reached its end. I wasn't sure what was happening or what I was hearing for a couple of minutes as I was still in a stupor after waking up. I took out my AirPods, trying to make out the noise that was coming from the door. Knock, 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 knock. I thought it was room service or hotel management, probably just checking up on me since my father who booked the room was gone. No, it couldn't have been. Who in their right mind would check up on someone in the middle of the night? Knock, 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 knock. Maybe it was someone who was locked out of their own room and thought my room was their own. But that seemed impossible as well. There were only 3 floors in this hotel. Bang, 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 bang. The person was now slamming their fist against the door. I was scared now, and I could only hope that the person would get tired and move on after a couple more minutes. The knocking continued with occasional banging against the door and finagling of the door handle. I was terrified now, not just because of the persistence of the person trying to get into my room, but also because I heard absolutely nothing else from the door. There was no breathing despite the heavy slamming of the door, nor were there any words spoken. If it was room service, they would have announced it so. If it was someone who mistook my room for theirs, I was expecting some sort of dialogue like,
"Mom? Dad? Brother? Sister? Honey?"
But I heard absolutely nothing but the incessant knocking and banging of my hotel room door. Bang, 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 bang. Knock, 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 knock. For nearly an hour, the person wouldn't stop. Now, I wasn't even sure it was a real person. Any human would have moved on by now. Any human would have spoken some words by now. Any human would have taken a breath by now. I didn't want to make my way towards the door to check on who the person was since there was a slit under the door that could have allowed someone from one side of the door to notice that there was someone on the other side. Instead, I hid behind the bed, hoping to God that this thing wouldn't get into my room and that someone would stop it. Bang, 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 bang. Knock, 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 knock. By 4:10 a.m., I had reached my limit. I just wanted to go to bed. I just wanted to feel safe again. There seemed to be no end of the knocking or slamming or finagling. The person on the other side never paused, and I never had a feeling of respite where I thought they would leave or take a couple of minutes to rest. I wanted it to end, and I thought calling the police would do that. However, I still didn't want to reveal the fact that I was in the room, so I texted 911 that there was someone trying to get into my room. The cursed signal couldn't get through. My message would not send, and all I could do was look helplessly at the green bar trying to reach the end as the banging got louder and louder. But no matter how much I stared at the message, it would not go. I was at my wit's end, and I gave up on secrecy. I dialed 911, and the dispatcher immediately picked up the phone. She asked so many questions, many of which I couldn't even answer. I didn't know what the person looked like. I didn't know what the person wanted. All I knew was that I was stuck in this hotel in Charlotte with someone or something relentlessly knocking and banging at my door. I believe that as soon as I began speaking, the banging got dramatically louder. The person on the other side was now pounding and pounding, and I could imagine him or her just swinging her entire arm against the door or kicking and kicking relentlessly at it. My voice was shaking and my eyes were watering, but I was still in my right mind and able to confirm my location with the dispatcher so she could send police my way. She ended the call, and the knocking and banging continued for a couple more minutes. But then, it fell silent. I just kneeled there, behind the bed, shaking, waiting for both the knocking to return and for the police to come. After maybe 5 minutes of silence, I had the gall to stand up, and I walked towards the blinds, hoping to see police cruisers swerve into the cul-de-sac of the hotel. I waited for 5 more minutes, and the tension slowly dissipated as I saw the police pull up to the hotel. A minute later, I received a knock on the door, accompanied by an actual human voice, "Charlotte, police." That was the only knock that night that I was happy to hear. The police told me they'd search the building and the surrounding area for any suspicious individuals. Unfortunately for both the police and me, there didn't seem to be any security cameras near my room since I was on the far side of the hotel. Till this day, I have no clue who or what was knocking on my door, but I am so glad that it never got what it wanted.